I am going to show you how to get in and out of stock. So if you come over to my screen here, you'll notice we had a big run up on John Deere, and then we had a big run down on John Deere. Now, the more important thing to notice than just the price action moving up and down is, of course, the overall trend. So we're going to go into some detail and understand why this was a good trade, how you entered this trade, how you exited this trade. So let's zoom it out a little bit. And the important reason to zoom out is we need to draw in our resistance support line, see where the stock is going to go, or have a good idea of where the stock is going to go. So if we just look here, we can obviously see that there is some very, very strong resistance that this stock has struggled to get through since 2022. Made all-time highs, came back in 2022, the end of it, made all-time highs, failed, came back in 23, tried to hit those all-time highs, failed. Now we're back at it. And you notice, did it creep through and make all-time highs here? Yes, of course. If you just draw this line over, look, it snuck through it. But what happened? Your volume didn't sustain, which we'll get into, and you fell right back down to the same level of support resistance, whichever direction you're going. So now that we know what that resistance point, support point is, let's zoom into the stock and understand. So we had earnings come out. Earnings they do two things. Number one, they usually move stocks in one direction or the other. Now, that can be a good thing, or it can be a bad thing. In this case, it turned out to be a good thing. Now, you wouldn't have known that at the time because you have to see what happens in the subsequent days. But if you look over here, this thing was able to, so here's our big day. Then the next day, you had an engulfing candlestick. Volume subsided a little bit, right? The following day, you had a nice engulfing candlestick. I would have not hesitated to add right here. And if you didn't add here and you wanted to wait an extra day, I would not have hesitated to add right here. Now, the important thing to know is how high can this go? Is this thing just going to go forever? Well, no, of course it's not going to go forever. Why is it not going to go forever? Well, if you come over here and look at this, it's the volume. The volume is going to do what? The volume is decelerating. What do I mean by decelerating? Decelerating means that there's less volume the day today than yesterday, the day before than yesterday. So if you come back to this volume chart and look at this, now did we have, we had a big spike in volume here. That was earnings. You're always going to see that. Next day subsided, came back a little bit more, but overall, what do you see? Well, look at this. You have here, here, and then here and here. So it is that deceleration in volume. So when you see decelerating volume, what's going to happen to the candles? Well, they're going to run out of steam. Think about it this way. You're in a race car, right? I'm not a very good artist. This looks like a rocket ship, but you're in a race car and you're going this way and you need to go an extra mile, but you only have 3/4 of a mile of fuel. Are you going to make it the full mile? Well, no, of course you're not. You're going to run out of steam. That's exactly what happens here with the volume. People were taking profits. How do I know people were taking profits up here? Well, let's come back over here and you can see what happened in the subsequent days. You had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 consecutive days of selling volume. What does that mean? People are taking profits. They caught this run. They're done with it. And now you're coming back to, if we just draw this line all the way back, that's the same level of resistance that we were seeing in 2022. So you're in this thing, you're running with it. How can you, let's talk about taking profits for a second. If you're in this stock and you know that you're in it, you're happy, you're making money. Let's say that you entered right here. Let's say that you entered at 443. Let's just use a whole number. And this is an example. This is not a trade that I was in, but this is a great example of how to get into a stock, how to take profits on a stock, when to exit a stock. So you're in this thing, moves up nicely. Let's say you're in it. Subsequent days, notice this wick right here. See that wick that I just drew over in yellow? Let me delete the drawing, but you can really see it. See that wick right there? Well, when you get a stock that runs up and it pulls back, that means that people are taking profits out of the stock. The next day you had a little bit of more of a downward force going on the stock, and you noticed the volume was a little bit weaker. These are the points where you can start to take profits. There's no steadfast rule to saying you need to take profits right now. No, but it's having the experience and understanding that you're breaking out over a resistance point that has been developing for over 2 years. The odds are not in your favor that you're going to keep going. Now, if you had, these are those two big volume bars. If you had these big volume bars for 5, 6 days in a row, yeah, you're going to keep going. You're going to keep going. You're going to keep pushing all-time highs. This is probably going to be your bottom, and you would probably go like this, and you jump back up, and you just keep going and going. But that wasn't the case. That's usually not the case. So what we're going to do is we're going to understand that we're over this line. We need to take some profits there. So this is a very interesting way and a good way to put money in your pocket, just knowing that when volume is decelerating and we're over a very, very strong support or resistance level, depending which way we're going, in this case, it's going to be resistance, you're probably going to get pulled back to that resistance line. And if you look over here, that's exactly what happened. Now, when do you exit the position? Because people always want to know, well, I'm in it, I took profits, when do I exit? And that is a fantastic question. And this is where people give back a lot of their profits. They're in a trade, they're up 10, 15, 20%, and they end up leaving the trade up 4 or 5%. Let's go into it. So if we look right over here, you notice that the stochastic is beginning to collide. Red and yellow are starting to collide. It's not turning over, but red and yellow are starting to collide. Then you notice that we have the red line kind of turning down, right? And it makes sense that it's turning down. Well, we have that level of resistance that goes back to 2022. We have a lot of selling volume coming in. And if you were in this thing and you saw 1, 2, 3 days of selling, you know that there's probably going to be a 4th day of selling, especially when you're seeing good candlesticks like that. When is it going to stop? It's probably going to stop around here, the 25-day moving average, if I had to guess. Or, yeah, about 25-day moving average, or maybe it could stop right here. But the point is, when you start seeing this rollover and you start seeing all of this selling volume coming in, there's not even a glimpse of buying volume, that's when you exit. Now, if you really wanted to, which I don't recommend doing, you could wait until the red line drops below 80%. But you notice here, when the red line drops below 80%, let's get some whiskers going here and see where that is. You were about here. So notice we got in here, we called it 443, right? 443. By the time you're exiting here, you're 447 when you could have exited back here when you started to see that rollover. So if you want to be incredibly systematic about this, there's subjectivity to this. That's why I like trading. If you want to be incredibly systematic, then you go ahead and you exit when it drops below 80%, but make sure you're doing that every single trade. To me, I like waiting for seeing that rollover. Now, it's not just the rollover. This is an interesting point, and this is where the experience comes in. When you just get a rollover like this, it doesn't mean just exit every time. No, I'm coupling that with this. I'm coupling that with, actually, not just this. I'm coupling that with a big spike in volume, a big deceleration in volume, knowing that we had that resistance point there from 2022, and now having all of this selling volume coming in. So all of those points into our trend is moving down, we're getting that rollover, to me, means exit point. And that is how you can approach getting into, taking profits, and exiting a stock. So let's look at one more example of this. If you come over to the screen, you can see this is Google. And now, this isn't John Deere. This isn't some small company, relatively small company. This is Google. This is the behemoth. Now look at this. They're all the same. All charts are the same. It's just pattern recognition. So here's your all-time high. This is that resistance point. Now, it doesn't go back to, actually, let's zoom out. Let's see how far it goes back. No, it doesn't. So it doesn't go back to 2022, but it's developing this resistance point. Now, what do you realize? Well, we had some event here that we had a big spike in volume right there, right? Then you jumped up. And now what's happening after you're jumping up? Here's the line. You're going to come back down. Why? Why are you going to come back down? Well, let's zoom in. Let's look at the same thing again. You had the big spike in volume, and now your volume is decelerating. You're starting to get sellers coming in. They're taking their profits. And what do you notice about this? Well, it's starting to get that rollover. And what do we also know? If we just zoom out a touch, we know that this is playing a pivotal role in resistance. Current price is 190.86. So you're on your way back down. This gap will likely fill. There's a lot of things pushing against you here that are saying Google is going to come back down. But most importantly, it's right here, this resistance point, and this move down. So if you bought this, let's say you bought this here on this engulfment, let's say you bought this here, you could have taken profits really about 191, maybe 194, 193, somewhere up in that area because you did push through. And now, because you're starting to get that rollover with that selling volume, you're probably looking to exit the position because this will more likely than not come down here unless there's another big news event that comes out. Now, you're probably looking and saying, well, where did you get Deere from? I didn't even know John Deere was a public company. Until a few years ago, I didn't know John Deere was a public company because I didn't really pay attention to it. But my point in saying that is a trade that I got from the Patreon community. It is a great community. You also get multiple community live streams per week. It is a place where we talk about these types of stocks. We come up with these different ideas and we place these trades together. Now, the Patreon community has a legacy price, and that legacy price is going to be going away during the new year. Now, if you're locked in already at that $25 level, you're in for life as long as you stay active and as long as you keep participating in the community. But just know that the legacy pricing will be going away, so get in now. It is a fantastic place to be. And guys, it is going to pay for its weight in gold. This is a process that you are going to learn for the rest of your life. Look, you may have $100 now. You may have $500 now and say, it's not really worth it for me. Well, at some point, you're going to have $50,000, $100,000. Wouldn't it be better to hit the ground running at that point than scramble at that level of wealth and say, now what do I do? No, this is something that you can use for the rest of your life. Now, I recorded a comprehensive video. It is about 2.5 hours long. It's bookmarked. It is every single thing that you need to know when it comes to trading. It's right here. You're going to enjoy it, and you have a great day.